The year is 1901, and war is about to ravage China. Over the next 30 years, warlords and artillery will destroy everything in their path, including a small and eclectic sect of Buddhist monks who refer to themselves as Shaolin. Their lineage begins in the year 520, when Bodhidharma, an Indian monk, arrived in Songshan province to spread his eccentric and distinct interpretation of Buddhist teachings. Bodhidharma, or Dharma as he is known in Chinese, was hardly the example of Buddhism one might expect. He ate meat, wore the robes of lay people, and practiced unconventional forms of meditation. He had a radical and unusual take on the teachings of Buddha, that a person may attain enlightenment now, in this lifetime, and not in some other life in the future. When Dharma arrived at the Shaolin Temple, it was a site for translating Buddhist texts from Sanskrit into Chinese. The monks slavishly laboured under the assumption that this effort would earn them enough merits to reach nirvana in the next life. Dharma, according to legend, was determined to lead the Shaolin monks through an intense meditation practice that would help them reach nirvana now, in a stripped-back, bare-bones interpretation of the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, or the first Buddha. No pantheon of gods, miraculous transformations, or ritualistic dogma here. This interpretation of Buddhism, known as Chan Buddhism, would come to be known in the West by its Japanese name, Zen. It would be characterized by a pragmatic and experiential approach to spirituality, rather than the strict obedience of worldly authority. However, things soon hit a snag, as things always do. The Shaolin monks, used to a sedentary life of books, could not keep up with the rigorous demands of Dharma's intense sessions of meditation. Although legend states Dharma cut off his eyelids and stared at the wall of a cave for 9 years, most likely he reverted back to his earlier training in yoga to help the monks get fit. This rudimentary training helped spur an interest in health and fitness, so they could endure the lengthy bouts of meditation, and according to legend, local bandits spurned an interest in self-defense. It's no good spending all that time trying to attain Buddha mind, only for some bandit to kill you for your relics and Buddhist treasures. This practice led some monks to adapt Dharma's methods into a meditative practice that copied the movements and strategies of wild animals in an effort to systemize their studies. On the face of it, this might seem strange, but there are many ideas in play here. For a start, this isn't about winning a boxing or MMA match. Far East Asian cultures don't regard competition in the same way Western cultures do. This really is about self-development and personal growth. Over the coming centuries, the monks would continue to develop their training methods and techniques with influences of their Taoist and Tibetan counterparts. They would learn medicine and warfare and adapt to incorporate various weapon systems throughout Chinese history. Many rebels and renegades would flock to the temple so they might learn in relative safety, leading to the temple being destroyed numerous times in the next 1500 years, and help defend, as well as overthrow, various regimes and tyrants. Shaolin, through its work as a monastery, would help create both heroes and villains. Their history would be preserved in a strong oral tradition that would serve as the bedrock of numerous legends and stories. This cemented a reputation of Shaolin as a devoutly Buddhist tradition that was no stranger to violence. Gung Fu is a broad term meaning time spent, an activity where someone has laboured for a long time to become very proficient in something. Tiling your bathroom can be considered Gung Fu if you've really put a lot of time into getting good at it. So the practices of the Shaolin monks was, first and foremost, a vehicle for becoming better Buddhists. Buddhism is famously pacifistic and against the use of violence. But in Chan Buddhism, the act of violence can be interpreted as a gift, which one can refuse. It depends on the situation. Your teacher may beat you, and that's a good thing. A mugger may try to steal your stuff, and he needs a beating of his own. It may or may not be you who offers it. That isn't why you practice Kung Fu. Wushu means martial art, literally, But in the West, Wushu refers to the sport of Wushu, which took a broad strokes approach to martial arts training. It was started by the Chinese Communist Party in 1958 as part of an overarching social, cultural and political movement. The Chinese State Commission for Physical Culture and Sports tried to create a standardized form, Taolu, from the plethora of Chinese martial arts. This national Wushu system adapted the major styles into standardized patterns, teaching syllabuses and instructor grades that you would learn in high school and university. It should be noted here that martial arts from Shaolin and Wudang temples are also included, ostensibly. The idea was to take the common elements of most styles and crystallize them into stylistic concepts for the purposes of sport. As a comparison, you could think of it as akin to gymnastics, because the focus was on the performance of the general ideas in China's martial arts. However, in 1979, the Chinese government included the combat sport of Sanda, which combined boxing, full contact kickboxing, wrestling, takedowns, throws and sweeps, and sometimes elbows and knees. It has its roots in matches meant to test military personnel, although when it became a sport, rules were put in place to protect the athletes. No blows to the back of the head, throat, groin or spine, and fighting stops when any fighter falls to the ground. Its military counterpart, however, aimed to include more real-world combatives, including shuai, similar to wrestling and judo throws, and qina, joint locks, strangulation and submissions. It might be easier to regard modern-day Wushu as an amalgamation of Chinese martial arts, systemized to make it easier to study. Its origins in 1958 were focused on creating a performance-based sport that took out most of the martial elements, and that was a politically motivated idea. However, in 1979, efforts to depoliticize Wushu came into effect. Now the market would decide where the direction of Wushu would take. In the early 20th century, following this warfare, the exiles of the Shaolin Order gathered in New York's Chinatown, intent on preserving the Order's teachings and history, as well as its Gung Fu. Much later, in 2006, the Order of Shaolin Chan releases its one and only book, determined to tell their side of it, the Shaolin Grandmaster's Text. Details on this group comes primarily from their book and a website, shaolintemple.org. It is since defunct, though you can still find it with the Wayback Machine. It's a relic from another time, a genteel and spiritual endeavour focused on the concepts of self-development and spiritual growth. Here they offered their take on Buddhism and Chinese martial arts, coming from their own oral tradition. The book was written so that their tale may not die with them. And yet, in 1985, the People's Republic of China decides to rebuild the Shaolin Temple located at Fujian. It becomes a hot tourist attraction where people from all over the world can learn Shaolin martial arts, so the story goes. In the March 1996 edition of Black Belt magazine, which is a periodical devoted to a variety of martial arts interests, an article written by John Funk appears. It's entitled The Shaolin Temple Hoax, and in it he claims that there is no authentic Shaolin Kung Fu being taught at the Fujian Temple. It's a theme park where you can learn Wushu and Tai Chi, but not genuine Shaolin martial arts, or even Chan Buddhism. The whole thing is a scam, he claimed. Save your money. Sifu John Funk is a teacher of 7-star praying mantis Kung Fu based in British Columbia, Canada. He hosted the Tiger Balm Internationals, as well as ranking in forms and weapons himself. So when a Shaolin demonstration troupe visited Vancouver, Sifu Funk did not think much of their performance. Their forms demonstrations, of which I've seen better, feature solely Wushu, and the athletes only completed 1 or 2 sections of their forms. Sifu Funk was also critical of modern Wushu, explaining, "This modernized version of Kung Fu is nothing more than a mixture of tumbling and gymnastics, with a few meaningless fighting techniques thrown in for effect. It's good for show, but none of it is valid for combat." Well, as previously mentioned, Wushu was created as a sport that celebrated Chinese culture and removed the martial aspects as much as possible. Though it may seem silly to modern audiences, Chinese history is littered with examples of uprisings, rebellions and revolutions that were led by martial artists that fled to the sanctuaries of Shaolin and Wudang temples. The Boxer Rebellion paved the way for the communist takeover, so it makes sense that the PRC might want to ban martial arts. Up until the invention of Wushu, practicing martial arts was outlawed. Imagine being arrested for practicing Tai Chi in the park. Sifu Funk was quite critical of the quality of Wushu instruction offered at the temple. Instructors don't seem to care a great deal about the progress of foreigners, not to mention the language barrier visiting students must face. But Sifu Funk goes a step further. This Shaolin Hoax is further perpetuated by the monks at the temple, who are, by and large, merely talented Wushu practitioners who pass themselves off as Buddhist clerics. They are, in actuality, athletes who are paid by the Chinese government, sent to the temple and instructed to shave their heads and act as monks for the benefit of visitors. But here Sifu Funk offers an olive branch. There are likely a few authentic Buddhists among this group of instructors, but even they have little or no connection to the Shaolin monks of the past. The Shaolin Grand Master's text seems to agree with Sifu Funk, citing the numerous times they sent their own representatives to Fujian to determine if a true return of Shaolin monks had taken place. They hadn't found anything close to their traditional martial arts, and as of 2006, they hadn't seen any adherence to Chan Buddhism either. And since Buddhist practice is the whole point of Shaolin, this leads one to a rather uncomfortable question. Is the Shaolin Temple an elaborate hoax designed to be a tourist attraction rather than a genuine temple of religious practice? This question is further compounded by another factor, one cited by Sifu Funk. The Chinese government, it should be remembered, is communist and doesn't want a religious group generating any ideas that don't conform to the party line. But come on, it's now 2025. Many people have trained at the Shaolin Temple. There's a Shaolin abbot, intent on furthering the cause of the Shaolin temples. Yes, temples. For now there's 3 that have been built. There's Shi Hengyi, abbot of the Buddhist community, Shaolin Temple Europe. You can buy Shi Deyang's instructional DVDs, helping yourself in learning Shaolin forms. A lot has been said about Shaolin martial arts, and as ever, it's contradictory and confusing. Given the current popularity of mixed martial arts as a sport, is it really that big a deal? And there's more to consider. We're viewing this through the lens of a Western mindset. Things are very different in China. There's a large history and cultural viewpoint to consider. There's the need to survive, and the world is a very different place now. Martial arts and spirituality have shifted ideas in the last 20 years. We haven't addressed the existence of Bruce Lee or the UFC and how that's had an effect. Nor have we looked at the internet and how that's radically altered the world in general. Our own prejudice and bias will be colorizing our opinions on the matter, and of that we should be careful. The Order of Shaolin Chan, in their book, didn't seem intent on disparaging whatever it is people are doing at these Shaolin temples. On the contrary, it's a great idea to bring tourism to the area, and youngsters can get a decent education at the Shaolin Temple, leading to job prospects as they get older. We do wish to clarify that those people living on the actual temple grounds may be sincere Buddhists, as well as outstanding martial artists. We are in no position to judge those things. We are in a good position, however, to assess whether the martial and spiritual training bears any resemblance to the pre-1900 Shaolin tradition as it has been transmitted through our sect. These guys are talking about a Shaolin largely lost to time, and they're not knocking modern Shaolin. This is a pay your money, make your choice kind of thing. The article, The Shaolin Temple Hoax, was written warning readers about putting their money into learning Shaolin Kung Fu in Fujian, but this warning should have a caveat. If you're happy learning Wushu in China, undergoing a strict and intense regimen that could conceivably be called Shaolin, then there's no real problem. In more recent years, there's absolutely a way for you to learn Shaolin Kung Fu even as a foreigner, but I doubt you'll be overthrowing the Chinese government anytime soon. As for learning historic Shaolin Kung Fu from the monks that fled war-torn China, well, that's a bit more difficult. I should imagine the authors of the Shaolin Grandmaster's text, if they're still out there, may be able to help you. Many Gung Fus throughout the world could conceivably lay claim to being descended from Shaolin, as their patriarch probably spent time at the Shaolin Temple at some point. Should one bother learning Shaolin Gung Fu in the first place? After all, boxing or BJJ are more en vogue. Shaolin philosophy is about non-violence and the diminishment of the ego, hardly useful when you want to be UFC champ. Shaolin views martial practice as vehicles of personal development, intent on liberating the individual from worldly attachment. Winning matches is to miss the point of Shaolin philosophy. Material goods become suffering in the Buddhist view. Just look at Conor McGregor. This leaves us with a dilemma. Can one learn Shaolin Buddhism in communist China? Damo's particular brand of pragmatic asceticism is at odds with modern living, given rampant consumerism, highly charged political debate, and subtle propaganda. Communism is against religion in general, because the only thing a communist government wants you to believe in is the government. Shaolin monks at today's temples do not practice the Shaolin tradition we are familiar with. But in Ranton's personal account of his time at the Shaolin Temple, he cites Buddhist practices and ceremonies. I don't personally doubt that there are sincere Shaolin Buddhist monks and nuns at the modern Shaolin Temple. So once again, we are left with shades of grey. The best answer would be to see it for yourself. The Order of Shaolin Chan seemed hopeful that things would change back in 2006. They might not be teaching the martial arts they remember, but they just might learn Buddhism in China. That was 19 years ago at the time of this video. Would you benefit from flying to China and learning Shaolin? That's really up to you. You may not learn the original Shaolin martial arts of old, but there may be someone out there who could teach you. The Shaolin Grandmaster's text was written with the intent of helping those interested in learning Shaolin philosophy. One's martial practice is an ongoing lifetime process. Maybe the true path of Shaolin lies within, through a daily practice of meditation and self-reflection, and using martial arts as a means of self-improvement. Then you might be closer to what the Shaolin adepts envisioned when they first gathered in New York. Is the modern Shaolin Temple a hoax? Maybe, maybe not. After all, martial arts was never the point. It was supposed to be about Buddhism. The martial arts was a means to an end. Perhaps a day will come when the old Shaolin order will once again return to carry on the traditions of the monks of centuries past. But for now, there is a Shaolin Temple, at least within the hearts and minds of its faithful. I leave you with this from the Shaolin Grandmaster's text. We believe that today's Shaolin tradition in the PRC traces back to Shaolin students and disciples who returned to the temple grounds after the temples were evacuated. These people could very well have been Shaolin Buddhist monks in a technical sense. Yet the loss of vast amounts of Shaolin knowledge in the PRC indicates that the last of Shaolin's priests either fled the country or were killed during the civil strife of 1900 to 1931. This was also directly related by 3 Shaolin abbots. We do not point this out in the spirit of competition, nor out of meanness. Our philosophy is rooted in cooperation, and we have no wish to damage tourism in China, an industry which provides crucial material support to many people. Our goal is to preserve our particular Buddhist tradition for those present and future beings it is meant to serve, against a propagandism which obscures the message, historical methods, and intent of Shaolin Chan Buddhism.